I've looked to my right, Deji. Looked to my left, AJ. These partners stink of poo.
Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm Nick and I am gay. And I can say with complete certainty that the hostility around like queer and gay and trans identities is insane right now. Obviously it's always, been bad. We are a marginalized community, but it's insane. And I think that a big part of that is obviously the internet and how interconnected we all are. It's so easy to spread hateful opinions, more now than probably ever before. And today I just kind of wanted to talk about some of the issues that I've been seeing a lot online in terms of homophobia, transphobia, just general bigotry against queer people. And I want to see if you guys see these things too, because it can't just be me. So this video I kind of crowdsourced because I wanted to hear what like other people have experienced in the queer community. So I did put like a little post on my community tab asking what people wanted me to talk about in the video. So I brought some of those topics here and then also some other ones that I've seen. So the first one was actually brought up by my IRL friend Kira. Here's your shout out. And it is the incessant fetishization of gay identities and relationships, both in the media and just like on social media in general. And before anybody tries to say that I'm just making up problems, I'm not the only person who's been talking about this. I'll put in some clips from other creators that I've seen talking about this exact topic.
But I've kind of had enough of all the computer comments, if you know what I'm talking about. For example, I saw this like really cute prom transition video of these two guys just doing a prom transition video, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cute, like yay. I opened the comments and every single comment was, oh, thank you, computer, well done, ooh, I know what's about to happen, blah blah blah. Mind you, these are teenage boys in high school making a cute prom transition. What are we fucking doing? Why are we objectifying every single queer couple now? Like, these are actual people with actual feelings and actual lives.
No, but I'm serious. Like, when it comes to like people IRL, I don't want to see two guys interacting, two guys hugging, maybe. And then the comments are full of girls being like, oh my god, kiss. Oh my god, like, make out. Who said that? Yeah, who said that? Like, you weird fuck.
And I see that a lot of times, especially recently, this has been a lot centered on gay men. It's like everybody will be so quick to see just two men interacting, whether, as friends or romantically, and they immediately jump to calling it yaoi or just otherwise like sexualizing it immediately. And I don't understand that. Like, some people obviously do that for straight relationships as well, which is also gross, but I see it almost constantly on posts about gay couples. They could be doing something like really sweet and wholesome, and then everybody will be like, thank you, computer. And I'm like, come on. It's so gross to me that people will just see two people of the same gender interacting and their mind immediately goes to what they're doing in the bedroom, because these are two complete human beings, right, with their own thoughts, feelings, emotions, preferences, opinions, and you are reducing them down to their sexual behaviors, and that is just disgusting. It changes how people view gay relationships as a whole, because I know a lot of people who are homophobic or like anti-pride or whatever will try and take sentiments like that against the entire pride movement, right? Like, they'll say that pride parades are inherently sexual because everybody is just walking around talking about what they like to do in bed, or talking about their kinks, or just being otherwise like rated R. And that's not what pride is about at all. Pride is about celebrating our differences and believing that love is love no matter who is sharing it. Bedroom activities are only a small sliver, I guess, of that, and that's not the main thing. Like, me personally, I could not care less what people do behind closed doors. When I'm celebrating pride, I'm celebrating the fact that people can be openly and authentically themselves, right? And I feel like that should be the norm. But like I said, this sentiment has spread so far, even outside of queer communities or adjacent communities, and it's spread into our media. The biggest and most obvious example that I can think of this would be heated rivalry, right? Obviously, I have to mention Heated Rivalry. So if you've never heard about Heated Rivalry, it's basically a show about two men who play hockey and it's about their romance. And there are a lot of explicit scenes. I've never actually watched it. I don't have whatever platform it's streaming on, but that's all I've heard, is that it's very explicit, which I don't have a problem with it existing, because adult media exists in straight contexts, in gay contexts. I don't care. You know, that's a part of a lot of people's relationships, and if they wanted to pick that, that's fine. My issue is mostly with its reception. A lot of people, especially I've seen straight women, latch on to the sexual aspect of the show and of the relationship, and they let that dictate their perception of the show and warps it from something about rivalry and family and bonds and everything like that to something just about bedroom activities. And it really gives insight into how they view gay relationships in general. This is also seen in things like the computer trend that's been going around, which started from, I'm pretty sure it was just like this girl went up to a group of guys and was like, "Computer, make these guys super gay and horny." Now it's spread to pretty much anytime you see any men from like with any sort of relationship between them on your For You page, people in the comments will be like, "Computer." Or if it is two men in a romantic relationship and they kiss or something, I don't know, then people will be like, "Thank you, computer," because they wanted to see them be intimate. And that's really gross to me, because why are you thinking about random strangers on the internet like that? Like, this is TikTok. What are we doing? You shouldn't be thinking about anybody like that. I've seen this a lot as well in, like I said, typically straight women who consume either BLs or yaoi. BL, it can be anything like manga, shows, books, animes, anything that depicts a relationship between two men at the center, and often just gets sexualized like far beyond the source material. Some of them are like inherently sexual, but a lot of them aren't, but people consume it in order to sort of feed this need for gay men being intimate in their minds, which is, again, beyond strange. And I just want to emphasize that there's nothing inherently wrong with consuming or enjoying media about men in relationships. I can say myself, I'm a writer. The manuscript that I'm working on right now is a love story between two men, but I'm focusing almost exclusively on the romantic aspect between them. I'm focusing on who they are as characters and how their relationship develops and how they, you know, heal each other's wounds. Like, and this topic isn't exclusive only to gay men, it also applies to gay women. We know that women in relationships have been sexualized as well, especially in things like exclusive adult material. I don't know how much YouTube is gonna let me say. Or relationships like that are just like overly demonized in terms of things like everybody's need for toxic yuri. I also had a lot of people point out in my video 2 videos ago where I talked a lot about bisexuality and lesbianism, that in the media a lot of lesbian couples will be portrayed as like two feminine women in order to appeal to men in the audience and sort of get them interested or aroused, which is again gross because you're positing these gay women as something to be objectified by straight men, and that's, again, like, what are we doing? And this objectification and willingness to view queer people as just their sexuality is not only homophobic because you're reducing them to just who they enjoy being intimate with, and also like kind of disgusting because a lot of this objectification and sexualization is very focused on these people's body parts or, like I said, intimate relations. Or sometimes I think a lot of people are drawn to it because of the promise of like forbidden or like strange love, which is again a homophobic take. And then another issue that I saw brought up is the infantilization of trans people, especially again trans men. And it's like, from what I've seen, a lot of times after trans people come out, people feel the need to like coddle them or over affirm their identity. Like I saw, I don't even know how many TikToks of trans men sharing their experiences of after they came out, and then their loved ones or just like people around them will be like, "Oh wow, like you're such a strong manly man, like oh you're giving so he him," like that's gross. I love that they're trying to be supportive, but that's not the way to do it, especially when people come out as trans in adulthood and people still feel the need to like baby them. They're not babies. They're grown adult. They're old enough to vote. I've also seen that some trans people will sort of infantilize themselves, and I was looking for why. It's sort of an attempt to give themselves the childhood that they never got because they were forced to present or act as a gender that didn't align with their personal identity. And I totally get that, but I don't think that that's the main concern that people were bringing up. It's more so talking about infantilization from other people. Okay, so for some reason, my phone decided that it wanted to prompt an update in the middle of me filming, and I didn't realize that it stopped, but it did. I know this video is a mess. I don't know what's going on, but I re-recorded the second half of my video, and I'm going to show that after this brief intermission, I guess. But I noticed that there were some topics in the post that I had forgotten to put in my notes. So I was like, why don't I just talk about them now? So one of the topics mentioned was queerbaiting, which I thought was really interesting because queerbaiting, if you've never heard of it, it basically just refers to typically pieces of media that'll include they'll hint at queer representation or queer characters without actually ever confirming it. And they do that so that queer people will still be interested and they'll still be engaged and they'll be inclined to claim it as queer representation, but they will never actually get that confirmed representation because whatever media it is afraid of alienating or scaring away its conservative or I guess straight viewers. I don't know. And so it's typically really deceptive and it's annoying because it's trying to capitalize off of gay identities without actually giving, representation or any sort of credit to the community. And a lot of people misuse this term to apply it to real life people and say that real people are queerbaiting. Now, I have rarely seen people share my opinion on this, but I do think that queerbaiting is a thing that real people can do. I see people say that, oh, it can only happen in shows or movies or something like that. No, real people can queerbait. Creators can queerbait 100%, but I don't think that it applies in every sense that people have accused people of queerbaiting before, if that makes sense. So I 100% think that creators can queerbait, the whole Natalie Reynolds and Piper Raquel situation, which I don't even really want to give more attention to them. It's ridiculous. But that's an obvious example of queerbaiting because those two are not together, but they're acting like they are to sort of appeal to that, oh my gosh, we're lesbians and we're making out kind of thing. Or maybe not lesbian, but maybe bisexual, because I'm pretty sure they're both partnered with men. So that is an example of real people queerbaiting, but it's mostly in a content sense, right? It's not going to be just a regular person, a girl in your class who's flirting with one of her other girl friends. That doesn't make her a queerbaiter. That's not how that works. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm kind of talking off the cuff here. Another thing that I saw was the imbalance between media depicting gay men versus media depicting gay women. And it's likely due a lot to misogyny, people not wanting to write women or writing men because they're somehow easier, or I don't know. Or maybe it's because gay men get fetishized more. I don't really know. Yeah, I hope all of that made sense. I was just kind of rambling, but back to the video. So next to my notes, I just have drag queens indoctrinating children, ? Which is funny because that's not exactly what I was trying to talk about for this part. It's more so about the argument that people say I don't want a drag queen reading to my child because they're gonna groom them or something crazy like that, which I've never understood. It's in the same vein of people thinking that their children being around gay people or seeing gay representation in media is just gonna make them gay. And that's obviously not true. Nothing makes you gay. If you see a piece of gay representation in media and it makes you genuinely start questioning your sexuality, the show didn't make you gay. It just probably unearthed something that was already there. Because I can say I grew up watching pretty much exclusively straight couples in Disney shows and movies and stuff. That didn't make me straight. So, and I really wish that people would find a way to flip their perspective every once in a while, because if they manage to put the beliefs that they hold about gay couples onto straight couples, it would make them realize how stupid it sounds. If you think that two women or two men holding hands or kissing in public is inherently indecent, then you should think the same for a straight couple. Now, I know a lot of people probably wouldn't or couldn't do that because they view gay couples as intrinsically or just like naturally wrong, which, speaking of nature, homosexual behaviors have been recorded in so many different animal species, so there's nothing more natural than that. And another point that I wanted to bring up is the religious animosity towards gay identities. Now, I have to preface by saying that I myself am Christian, so I think that this gives me like a pretty unique perspective on it. I feel as though I understand my religion of Christianity better than a lot of the bigots who call themselves Christians, because I follow Jesus because he said to help others and never judge, and that's what I do. And I feel like I'm a good example of how change can be done right when it comes to like changing your perspective. When I was first introduced to the concept of like queerness or people being gay, I was in middle school. I literally had no concept of it before that. And at first I was just like confused. But then I remember I did some research on like queerness and like what it meant to be gay, and a lot of the stuff that I found said that it was against Christianity and that it like wasn't allowed. So at first I did kind of like push back against it, and I will be the first to say that I was not as progressive as I should have been in middle school. It was a whole mess. But then eventually I did my research and I found out that the Bible actually says nothing against homosexuality. And I also thought critically and realized that there was nothing wrong with being gay. It's just attraction and it's natural and it's fine. I also started to wonder why people push this narrative of homosexuality being a sin or why it's against God or something like that. And I feel like a lot of people skip this step and they just see, I'm not supposed to like this, okay, I don't like this. And they don't do the work to understand why it is that, I guess, these institutions want you to be against it. A lot of people just kind of like stop at the hatred because it's safer for them and they never actually have to confront any sort of internal biases or challenge their beliefs. Religion, especially in America, is typically perceived as conservative. So a lot of conservative institutions will use religion as sort of a vessel to push political agendas. And obviously part of the conservative agenda is the isolation and eradication of gay identities. A lot of people who might not be educated often fall into this alt-right or just outright right-wing pipeline, and they end up contributing to these hate campaigns and propaganda, and they'll use their religion sort of as like a shield or like a justification for this hatred. And that makes it really difficult and almost like dangerous to argue against them, because like I know firsthand how difficult it can be to separate your religion and your personal beliefs from your politics. When your spiritual or religious beliefs sort of dictate how you view the world and how you choose to live your life, it can be so easy to just be like, this is the correct way. You just see that as like inherent truth. But sometimes it is difficult to take that step back and be like, okay, it's not the inherent truth, it's my truth. And while I do believe that my truth is the truth, I also have to understand that not everybody believes that. And I am the kind of person that believes that you can't convert somebody unless they have an open heart. So that's why I've always told people in my life, like, if you ever want to talk about religion, I'm here, but I'm never going to come to you and be like, this is what I think you need to know about Christianity, because that's not going to work. Like, nobody's going to listen to you if you just try and sit them down and tell them, like, matter of fact that this is what they need to believe. That's not how that works. And while, yes, you know, I would love to share my beliefs with other people around me, but I know that if that's not what they want, I'm not going to force that on them. I know that not everybody holds the same belief systems as me. I can dictate my life according to my beliefs, but I can't dictate somebody else's life according to those beliefs, you know? And I really wish that people would understand not only that, but also that if you're going to use your religion as a way to justify everything that you say, you have to be well versed on your beliefs. You have to like do your research and do your studies before you start using like lies to justify your claims. I also wanted to mention the fact that I see the argument all the time of like, well, God made you a man, so you can't transition into a woman because that's just how you were born. And it's like, well, no, a trans woman was born a woman, but also that's like saying, oh, well, God gave you a specific defect so that you can't breathe out of your nose. So if you get a surgery to fix your nose so you can breathe, that's a sin because that's not how God made you. And it's like, no, they're getting a physical change so that they can live life more comfortably. And then obviously there's just been so much homophobia online in the ways that I've said before, but also just like there's a lot of small things that'll pop up here and there that really just build into something that makes it really difficult to just navigate any spaces online without encountering homophobia. Like calling men zesty for doing anything, for either having emotions or having fun, being goofy, anything, and they immediately get called zesty. Or calling men who are mean to women or who women have had a bad experience with in the past, immediately labeling them gay. No, he's not gay, he's just a bad person. And by you equating those two, by saying, oh, well, if he's mean to women, he must be gay, you're automatically saying that gay men are just inherently mean, which is homophobic. Or men online acting like a man having a boyfriend is like the worst insult that they could ever come up with. It's insane. And then obviously one of the biggest challenges that we face today as a community is all of the legislation being passed that's trying to take away all of our rights. One of the biggest ones being the whole bathroom debate of letting trans people into the bathroom that they feel most aligns with their gender, which pisses me off every single time it comes up in conversation, because whenever somebody is arguing against letting trans people into the correct bathroom, they always say, oh, because what if a man just dresses up as a woman and goes into the woman's bathroom and assaults somebody? First of all, it's funny that you're identifying that the issue is men, because society is never too keen on blaming men for anything. Second, you're blaming men. You're not mad at the trans woman, you're mad at the man who's dressing up as a woman to get into the bathroom. So you're punishing trans women for the faults of cisgender men. How is that fair? Plus, if a cisgender man wanted to go into a woman's restroom and assault a woman, he's already so far gone. He's not going to wait for legislation to pass so that he can do that. There's also the argument of whether or not trans people should be able to play on sports teams that align with their gender. Again, this is stupid because studies have shown that trans people on hormones don't get any kind of physical or biological advantage in these sports, so it's just people being transphobic. Plus, the percentage of trans people in sports is so small that they're getting all of this legislation passed, and it's like you're literally impacting like 3 people. Obviously that's an exaggeration, but I'm just saying, like, there are bigger issues to worry about, and this isn't even an issue at all. Them trying to repeal gay marriage, the whole don't say gay stuff. We are constantly on everybody's minds. And sometimes I wish that cisgender or straight people would understand how many trans or gay or otherwise queer people they meet on the daily, and they don't even realize it because we're not monsters like they think in their heads. We're just normal people. The people that they think are trying to destroy their society are just like moms picking up their daughter from soccer practice or their Lyft driver giving them a ride home. It's ridiculous. All of this hatred, and we're people, just like anybody else. Those were all of the main topics that I wanted to talk about. I'm sure there's like a billion more, and I really want to talk more with you guys in the comments. I read every comment, so let's chat there. And I just want to know if you guys are frustrated too. Like, sorry if this video wasn't very like funny or happy or anything. I'm just kind of pissed. I'm pissed, and I'm sick of people seeing us as less than or second-class citizens just because of who we love or who we were always born to be. Sometimes I wish that bigots could spend like a day in the shoes of whoever they hate so strongly, and they would realize that we're just people. But in all, thanks for watching, and I don't have an outro, so bye.